20 years ago, Total Nonstop Action was a fast-rising organization with a new home in Spike TV and a roster that combined established legends with young, up-and-coming, innovative wrestlers, many of whom are current movers and shakers in the wrestling world today, still active as wrestlers, as agents and producers in all companies around this great world of ours. And this year, in 2026, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of this big pivotal year, once a month here on the channel, I'll be going back to 2006 to revisit classic TNA pay-per-views, beginning with the dawn of a new era with Final Resolution 2006 from January 15th at the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. I'm really excited to take on this project this year. You know, TNA historically has been a big blind spot to me. I would say this is probably the era in which I was the most curious, the most interested in it during that time period, but I kind of fell off with it. But there's a lot of good stuff here as I've been dipping into 06. Like last year I covered, Hard Justice and Bound for Glory. I liked those shows, so now I'm really curious to see how the rest of the year adds up, because as I am doing the research for this, I'm soon reminded of some of the things that might have turned me off to TNA at the time. Because, there's the overexposure of Jeff Jarrett, the wounds of 2000 WCW, still fresh in the minds of a lot of fans during that time. Also, there's this big group of guys named Team Canada who are really annoying, and they're in 8 different storylines at any given time, any given week in Impact. They're all over the programming, and that was kind of irritating as a fan. And yes, at the time I found Mike Tenay and Don West to be a little grating on commentary, although I have definitely softened to them over time. So one of the things I'm looking forward to with this year-long project is to see, looking at the good and the bad of it 20 years later, so far removed from it at the time, will these things affect my enjoyment of watching it again all these years later? Or will my opinion on things improve over time? I mean, they only can. It's been 20 years. I got all year to do this, so let's dive into this journey together. It's a very exciting time for TNA because they just announced at the start of the year that they had signed Sting to a contract. This is a big deal for them because Sting did wrestle for them in the early days of the company, the weekly pay-per-view era, only made a handful of appearances and then was gone for many years. So this is the beginning of the journey of Sting in TNA as we know it. And so it is going to be a big deal because besides Kurt Angle later in this year, Sting is probably the biggest acquisition they ever really get. I mean, they're on a real big signing tear at this time. They got Christian Cage, they got Team 3D, they got Sting, they're gonna get Kurt Angle. It is definitely a big moment of momentum for TNA at this point. And so the opening hype package is all about the return of Sting and the main event. We get interview footage with Monty Brown and world champion Jeff Jarrett and his feathered hair. And he's like, I took TNA to Hulk Hogan. Hey, even though it didn't go anywhere and Hogan showed up to TNA 5 years later. Ho ho! And meanwhile, the babyfaces gush about Sting. TNAWrestling.com presents Final Resolution. 900 folks in the Impact Zone at Universal Studios. This show earned roughly 45,000 pay-per-view buys, up big from this time last year. Mike Tenay and Don West are on the call. We get the rundown from the commentators, then we get the pyro, and it is the saddest combination of pyro pip pip pips and apathetic crowd I've ever heard. X Division action to open the show as Alex Shelley, Roderick Strong, and Austin Aries take on Chris Sabin, Sonjay Dutt, and Matt Bentley with his main squeeze Tracy. Shelley, Roddy, and Aries, they are just a group of young, up-and-coming kind of punks in the X Division. There's a story right now where they are basically yearning for legitimacy, yearning for opportunities. One of the agents, Jerry Lynn, tells them, stop whining and start winning. The threesome does win a big tag team match on Impact against AJ Styles, Christian Cage, and Christopher Daniels, so they have kind of pushed Larry Zbyszko to give them a match here on pay-per-view. Man, that is a disappointing Bentley bounce from the audience. Baby pre-machine guns, Shelley and Sabin start out the match. Shelley looks like he spikes himself on an early snapmare here. Then Shelley just bites Sonjay Dutt's thumb to get out of a headlock. I've never seen that before. Sonjay is a lot of fun to watch in this matchup. He's very quick and agile, goes for the sprinkler, but Roderick Strong with a cutoff. We get this insane triple team move onto Sonjay. And wait a minute, what's Dave Hebner, TNA management consultant, doing out there in the crowd? This has been an ongoing thing for the last few weeks on Impact. We'll get a shot of Dave Hebner just kind of in the crowd, looking around, observing. Seeds being planted for what? We do not know. Austin Aries in the ring doing a springboard super back rake. Wow, talk about innovative. Dutt is dumped over the top rope, almost takes out Alex's camera tripod. No! And now we have Jerry Lynn showing up at ringside. Okay, how many agents are going to just be out there watching this opening match? More sneaky double teaming on Sonjay, more heat, but Dutt's able to hit a big tornado DDT. In comes Shelley and Sabin once again. Sabin with a series of big kicks, doing a DDT to Strong while running off the other two guys. Bentley with a top rope elbow, keeps trying to make a cover, but it keeps getting interrupted. Dutt hits an insane backflip edge-o-matic, I don't know what you call it. A double shoves Sonjay off the top rope, gets it in kind from Sabin. Bentley goes for a super kick, but Roddy cuts him off. But then Tracy on the apron with a distraction. Bentley kicks Roddy, but then Shelley rolls him up and grabs the tights to win. Then he aggressively grabs his own tights to let everyone know, I got him by the tights. I give it 3 stars out of 5. That was a very fun, explosive opener to the show. And I like that format. You put the young, flippy guys in the ring. They're fast, they're agile, they're exciting. It's a standard formula. It's been done for so many years up to this point, and it works. I think these guys did a great job, and boy, looking at this little talent pool here, realizing what we have later on this year, we have the birth of Paparazzi Productions. We have Kevin Nash, savior of the X Division. Oh man, I'm ready for this. We get a recap of 4 Live Crew drama. Last month at Turning Point, Konnan snapped on the 4 Live Crew and bludgeoned Kip and BG James with a chair. Ron the Truth Killings, he's distraught over all this, doesn't know what to believe or which side he should take. And meanwhile, BG's father, Bullet Bob Armstrong, the legend, he tries to play peacemaker, but Konnan leads a brutal assault on the old man at the hands of his new group, the first version of LAX, Homicide and Apollo. So Bullet Bob is taken out. He needs surgery on his knee. I like this storyline here. I like the personal animosity. BG James's promo on the Go Home Impact, which they would then use in hype packages for this. Like that, man, that set it for me. Just the raw emotion and the anger that came from him and the way he made us believe how deeply this affected him, I think that's what sold it for me. This is a very compelling story right now. So BG and Kip James, they're out for revenge, but they are not actually fighting LAX on this show. What they're doing instead is a bit of a tune-up match, because this is the first time on pay-per-view in about 6 years that these two have teamed up. And so it is a big deal. New Age Outlaws back in effect as the James Gang. You got Billy Gunn with his Cindy Lou Who hair. These guys are taking on the Diamonds in the Rough. That's David Young and Elix Skipper. Hey, Simon Diamond, I acknowledge that tracksuit. Before the match begins, BG is doing his rap, because it's the New Age Outlaws. People remember that shtick. And so the crowd's going along with it. The lyrics are close enough to the original, the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And then after they do the tag team champions of the world, it's all like new lyrics. These TNA fans don't know what to expect. Then Kip says he only has 3 words. Get it! Got it! Good! Starting out with Elix Skipper and BG James, why does BG look like he's wrestling drunk? That's not necessarily a rhetorical question, because I know he was dealing with substance abuse issues at this time. I don't want to make any accusations about this particular match, but he is very wobbly here. James does get some offense in, but Skipper is not impressed. Cute Kip comes in, hits a double Japanese arm drag on his opponents, and then BG lines them out. I think BG is meant to get tripped up by Skip here, but the cue is missed, so James just has to stop himself so he can be wide open for a spine buster. Road Dogg takes a bunch of heat and some double teaming. Young goes for a moonsault, but nobody in the pool. Kip gets the tag in and is a house of fire, even decks Simon Diamond off the apron, but Primetime comes in with the buckshot lariat. BG goes for the sodomy handle slam, but is cut off. Then Kip hits the one and only to Skip for the big win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match was a little rough. I mean, it was a basic formula. This is the New Age Outlaws formula. Road Dogg takes the heat, Billy Gunn makes the save or whatever. But, I think Kip and the Diamonds in the Rough looked fine. I think BG was serviceable, although there were a few points in this matchup where I'm like, why are you moving around like this? We're backstage with interviewer Shane Douglas talking to Christopher Daniels ahead of his match with Samoa Joe later on, and Shane says speculation's running rampant that you came back from your concussion just a bit too too soon. Then Daniel says, let's talk about amazement. How about what's amazing is that Samoa Joe took 6 months to finally say something here, and I'm amazed at how inaccurate he was this whole time. He says, Joe says I've already been beaten, but if you look at the names he's beaten, I'm not on that list. And he says I'm injured, but last night I didn't look too feeble or infirmed, did I? And Joe says he'll take a clean towel and wipe up my blood with it. Look into my eyes. Do I look like someone scared to bleed for what I believe in? He says there's a difference between unbeatable and unbeaten. And at Final Resolution, he will spread his finest gospel at Joe's expense and says Joe better say his prayers. This promo was some good shit. So I love happy coincidences on this channel, and let me tell you something, I had no idea when I was putting this schedule together that this show and my review of this show would coincide so closely with the retirement of Hiroshi Tanahashi. And I bring that up because our next matchup features a young Hiroshi Tanahashi as the future ace of New Japan takes on AJ Styles, Mr. TNA, in an international exhibition. So when I see this match on the card, I'm super excited because I've never really seen Tanahashi from this point in his career. He's only 6 years into his career at this point. He's just kind of gotten out of the young lion phase. He's the current U30 champion of IWGP. And at this point, he is only months away from winning his first IWGP heavyweight championship. So we are seeing like a guy who is on the cusp of becoming like the biggest star in Japan, the guy to lift New Japan from the depths and to make it the powerhouse it has been more or less for the last decade or so. And so it's just so cool to see him here at this point. Like I said, AJ is Mr. TNA. He was voted that by the online fans for the 3rd year in a row. And then on Impact, when he won the award, Shannon Moore, the Prince of Punk, he stole his plaque and they ran all around the Impact zone over it for the whole episode. It was pretty funny. Wow, look at Tanahashi. His legs are mostly straight here. They're sizing up a little bit at the beginning. Nice flipping drop kick in the corner by Tanahashi. Styles responds with a snug looking drop kick of his own. Man, I love, the historical context Mike Tenay puts in matches like this. He is working overtime. At least in the Nitro days when he was like the 3rd man in the cruiserweight matches, there would be some time for him to take a breath and then lay all this exposition out. But it's just him and Wes, so he's got to do like calling the moves and giving the exposition. He's just going like, in 1999 he did this, in 2000 he did this, he beat Negro Casas, he beat Scott Hall. He is just like pounding into you the whole synopsis of his career into this match in one go, and it's a very admirable job. Styles piling on the pressure until Tanahashi hits a big German suplex, lots of big ground attacks. The Dragon Sleeper is applied, then he turns it into a giant swing. Holy crap. He goes for a second rope elbow, but Styles moves, starts coming back, hits the phenomenal forearm, but Tanahashi fights back with a full Nelson slam. AJ looks to go for a kick, but something seems to be lost in translation. Tanahashi with a sling blade and a kick out. They're fighting on the top rope. Tanahashi goes for a slam, but Styles counters. The struggle continues, but then in comes Shannon Moore with the Mr. TNA plaque. He goes to hit AJ with it, but he dinks Tanahashi instead. Styles kicks Shannon out of the ring, hits the Styles Clash on Tanahashi for the win. And Styles, ever the sportsman, he's apologizing to Hiroshi for it going down like that. Then Tanahashi gives the plaque to AJ in a show of respect. Then that no good Nick Shannon Moore yoinks it away again. It's a great match. I give it 4 stars out of 5. AJ is in kind of a limbo period right now because he's not the X Division champion anymore. He has not begun his partnership with Christopher Daniels yet. So right now he's just kind of there. And this match did feel like it didn't have a whole lot of build to it. But I think that being said, the match was great. Yeah, I feel that the finish was done in a way to protect Tanahashi in the loss. So kind of frustrating, but I got why they did it. And yeah, of course, things will only go up for Tanahashi, the future ace, going from here. We get a recap of Raven's beef with Larry Zbyszko of the Championship Committee. Now, since losing the NWA World title last year, he was never granted a rematch, and he's had it out for Zbyszko ever since. He's attacked him multiple times. Zbyszko wants him out of TNA. He's put him through the ringer, and he's putting him through matches against people in Raven's past, like Justin Credible and Chris Kanyon. And tonight he faces a mystery opponent, and Raven says he will never tap or be pinned. We go to a dark, spooky room where Shane Douglas is interviewing Raven. Shane says, "They say a cobra is most dangerous when it's backed into a corner. I've been in the ring with you, Raven. I know what you're capable of, but I also know that Zbyszko has pushed your shoulders to the wall as much as he can. Tonight, it's do or die." And Raven's great in this promo. He and Zbyszko have a great way to throw like different unusual words in on insults, and it makes me laugh every time, where he calls Zbyszko a spindly-legged, dim-eyed halfwit. He says, "You look like a festering piece of dung shat out by a diseased yak." And then he calls him a fascist and a bully. What a scale of insults he went from there. He says, "Wrestling is my mistress, my passion, my love. If it wasn't for wrestling, I'd blow my brains out. How dare you put me in a position where it could all end tonight? Don't you have more important things to do, like paperwork and tossing salad?" Again, I love how Raven can just slip in these like middle school insults into the middle of this promo with these 2-bit words. Because right after that, he goes into this sentence saying, "Mighty unseen hands sculpt our mortal clay. Will she sculpt me one last title reign or a ladder into oblivion? Either way, someone's getting hurt. And Zbyszko, you better pray to God that it's me." And again, Zbyszko tosses salad. Quote the Raven, nevermore. Larry Zbyszko's in the ring, surrounded by security and wearing his big dog button-up shirt. And he says, "Raven, you win, you get a title shot. You lose, your history. And your opponent is Six-Pack Sean Waltman." Yes, the former X-Pac is back in TNA for this matchup. He and Raven did fight before in a singles match. It was a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match at Hard Justice last year. Waltman was filling in for Jeff Hardy, who did not show. And I know that he was also in the King of the Mountain match at Slammiversary 2005. He has been making some on and off appearances, and he's back here tonight. Raven brings his shopping cart full of plunder, drives it right into X-Pac to start off. He chases after Larry, but then Waltman cuts him off. Waltman starts off with some kendo stick shots, one to the dome even. Raven's now busted open on the outside. Security is propping him up. The camera completely misses Waltman's dive over the top rope onto all of them. X-Pac drives the shopping cart into Raven multiple times on the way up the ramp. They're on the stage, and we get kind of a jackass moment where Raven is like trying to put Waltman in the shopping cart, but it's more like Waltman is putting himself in it. So you see him gently easing into the shopping cart, and then he's gonna push it off the stage, but then the cart flips out from underneath Waltman, and he just like lands hard on his ass before tumbling off the stage. That was really scary. How was that meant to go? Was Waltman supposed to just ride in there and fly off the edge like E.T. or some shit? Because it really could have gone badly. Back in the ring we go. Raven produces a table and a ladder. We get a referee bump, a Raven effect DDT to X-Pac, but there's no ref. In comes Zbyszko to take over the duties, but aw shucks, Waltman kicks out. We get a low blow by Waltman and the X Factor. We get another kick out. Why is Larry counting normal? Why not cheat? Waltman sets up the ladder. There's Dave Hebner again. Waltman goes for a Bronco Buster on the ladder, but damn near rips his ass. Larry is still counting surprisingly slow. The ladder is stood up by the table. Both men go up it, but Larry finally intervenes. We get an X Factor through the table. Going for the count, Raven gets his foot on the ropes. Larry clearly sees it, but counts the 3 anyway. Waltman wins, and Raven is out of TNA. Zbyszko says it's time to escort Mr. Raven out of his arena. Lots of sadness. The number 1 fan, Cassidy Riley, is super sad as Raven makes his way to the back. I give it 3 stars out of 5. You know, Sean Waltman is not somebody I associate with hardcore style matches, and I think, you know, he's done fairly well in them here. I think he and Raven get along great. They have a great chemistry. Again, I shudder to think what that shopping cart spot was supposed to look like and how it might have looked had Waltman and the cart left the stage together as intended. There was a lot of, you know, corrupt official fuckery in here, and this is gonna probably come up a lot in these reviews as the months go along. But man, does it ever feel like there's just a lot of conspiracies going on in TNA right now? I feel there's just a huge, and like I was seeing it at Hard Justice in Slammiversary 06, and we're still seeing it here. It's like, oh, undercurrents of conspiracy. What's Dave Hebner doing? Oh, what's Jeff Jarrett doing? Oh, what's Larry Zbyszko doing? And it's just like, this is the longest running, overarching storyline, and I feel no matter what point in the timeline I'm on, we're gonna be right there in the middle. Oh, where's Team Canada fit into all this? Oh, all the conspiracies. Way too many conspiracies right now, and I feel that at this point, we need to keep it a little simpler. Shane Douglas is backstage with Ron the Truth Killings, and he's talking about his match with Bobby Roode. That's right, folks. This week, he's Bobby. So last week on Impact, Truth pinned Roode twice in under a minute each time. Then in the third match, Roode won dirty. So now we have I guess this is a rubber match? Shane says for the first time in a while tonight, Truth is on his own. Killing says he's known for making history around here, and he's going to go through all the Canadians if he has to. And as he's talking, Konnan comes into the shot, and he's trying to, make amends with Truth, saying, hey man, why haven't you called me? You're that upset? You can't call? And he starts asking him point blank, do you think that I would do to you what I did to Bullet Bob and the James gang? And he asks this multiple times. He's trying to get an answer out of Truth, who is just refusing to answer definitively. He's not saying yes or no. He just says, I don't trust anybody right now. But Konnan says, just tells him to think about it a little bit. Tenay and West are grieving over the unfair departure of Raven, and then we cut to the backstage area where Raven is now walking out, looking sad. Zbyszko ushering him out and tells him not to forget his bag. Then suddenly in walks Jackie Gayda, last year's knockout of the year, and she wants to talk to Raven. They both have something in common. They've both been screwed over by some people around here, looking at Larry, and she says it's much bigger than what Raven thinks, and she wants an audience with Zbyszko. Like I said, conspiracies abound.
JCW Lunacy. New episodes every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. For over 25 years, JCW has delivered the very best in pro wrestling entertainment, bringing fans deep storytelling drama, gut-busting comedy, and unbelievable in-ring action. From wild characters to unforgettable rivalries, JCW has built a legacy that spans generations of fans. Whether you've been watching since day one or you're brand new to the chaos, there's never been a better time to join the madness. See why JCW is the hottest promotion in independent wrestling today, where anything can happen, and usually does.
Oh, take a look at this!
Don't miss a single moment. Tune in every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube and catch up on past episodes right now. JCW Lunacy. It's more than wrestling, it's a way of life.
Up next, Bobby Roode of Team Canada with Coach Scott D'Amore takes on Ron Killings in a rematch. Truth tries to pick up the quick win again, not so fast. Roode letting out a big, God damn it! We get a whole dang sequence of back-to-back pinfalls. Roode wants to walk, but the coach is talking to him. Big plancha by the Truth. Roode then drives Killings into the ring post. D'Amore with some cheap shots in on the outside. Roode with the abdominal stretch with hockey stick leverage. On the third time Roode gets caught, let's go. Scott falls backwards into the railing. That was funny. Ron fights back out of the corner, starts to mount his comeback, Truth countering a top rope crossbody for another near fall. Then out comes Konnan in his Bobby Orr jersey, who heads up to the apron. That distraction is enough for Roode to hit the Northern Lariat from behind and get the win. In the ring, K-Dog and Truth are having a chat, Konnan saying to listen to him. Then suddenly in comes BG James, who wants to whoop on Konnan. Truth tries to stop it, but in runs Homicide of LAX with the jump. Truth is muy conflicted, and he just leaves. Kip James runs in with a chair and dinks Homicide to save the day. Kip yells something to Konnan as K-Dog is powdering. I played it back 20 times. I cannot for the life of me figure it out.
And look at Konnan roll out.
I give it 3 stars out of 5. It was a really solid match. I like the story a lot, throwing back to the stuff on Impact the previous week. Some good heel manager shtick, always like that. And then, more incorporation of this big drama between the fallout of 4 Live Crew and the formation of LAX and the James gang, where Truth fits into all this. It's a very interesting storyline that I'm kind of just jumped into. And I know at first when I was like, how come they're not fighting LAX like right now? Like, it all makes sense now. This whole build, I'm being led along well here. I'm very curious to see where it goes. Shane Douglas is backstage with James Mitchell and the monster Abyss. Now, Abyss has Rhino later on tonight, but he wants to know Sinmin's thoughts on the arrival of Sting. So Mitchell gets one sentence out about Sting where he says, Sting's arrival signifies that the lines have been drawn and the war is about to begin. And he says, you, Rhino, tonight you are in a battle with Abyss, a battle you cannot possibly win, because despite being one of the most fierce competitors in history, you're so obsessed with your own personal misfortune to get the job done. He says, if you had been more concerned about wrestling instead of your estranged daughter, matter. You might still be world champion, Rhino. I've got a little news flash for you. You're a mammal. You're supposed to reproduce. He says, you, Rhino, are an endangered species, just like your namesake. And when I press this detonator, the monster abyss will send you to extinction. And we get big cackling, big grunting, big evil nasty heels. So up next, it's Rhino versus Abyss. Now, ever since he lost the NWA World title last year, Rhino has been on a rampage and has been looking for revenge against Team Canada. So Scott D'Amore, he's feeling the heat and just goes over to James Mitchell and goes, hey, can you fight my battle for me? And sure enough, we've got Abyss fighting Rhino this month. Abyss is coming off a brutal and insane barbed wire massacre match versus Sabu. That was voted match of the year by TNA fans. Rhino wastes no time getting to the ring and the brawling begins right away. Rhino doing a springboard dive to Abyss on the outside. Holy crap. Abyss now with the advantage. Many chair shots to the spino of Rhino. He takes over for a while. We get a chair set up in the corner. Rhino's driven headfirst into it. Rhino fights his way back, and at one point he's got Abyss in the corner and does like a running shoulder tackle into his stomach in the corner, and I'm like, isn't that just a gore? Like, they don't call it that. It's just, a shoulder tackle into the corner. It's the same motion. If anything, the corner one would hurt more because the body's got nowhere to go. It's all just impact like that. So I would call that a gore. Rhino's got a chair and gets to dinking. The crowd even chants one more time and he obliges their bloodlust. Sinman with a distraction on the outside. Abyss grabs his steel chain and blasts Rhino in the face with it. Somehow it's not the end. Mitchell giving the cue for Doomsday, but Rhino counters into a spinebuster. He calls for the Rhino driver, but again, Mitchell runs interference. That allows Abyss to take Rhino to Dick Kick City, hits the black hole slam on the chairs for the win. I'm going to give this one 3 stars out of 5. I thought it was a very hard-hitting physical matchup that I think fit both these guys' styles really well. My one issue with this, it's kind of a nitpick, but like if it's supposedly no DQ, I don't get why James Mitchell has to be sneaky about his manager shenanigans, his manananigans, because yeah, it's no DQ. Do what you want, brother. But besides that, I still think it was a good match for what it was. Up next for the NWA World Tag Team titles, America's Most Wanted, accompanied by Gail Kim, defend against Brother Ray and Brother Devon of Team 3D. The former Dudley Boys debuted for TNA back in October. They're on a mission for gold, and the whole story is they've held tag team gold everywhere. They have 18 tag title reigns to their credit in multiple companies all over the world. Yes, even in WWE. Boo goes the crowd. And so Bully Ray says, I would gladly give up all 18 of those reigns for one time with the NWA World Tag Team titles. So we'll see if they meet their destiny here tonight. The Team 3D funeral had also taken place a couple of months before this, so it's still fresh in people's minds, and so Team 3D definitely out for revenge here. The match begins. I can't believe Brother Ray is wearing an Impact shirt. Get your own merch over, man. Brother Ray goes for the big senton, but he misses it. In comes the cowboy Chris Harris, who gets the choke in. More back and forth. Devon's on a roll as the fans begin to chant for tables. Okay, free double team time apparently. What? The lads bring out a table. They hit Storm with it, but then knock knock, who's there? Chris Harris with a sliding drop kick of his own. AMW's working over Devon now, but Devon gets out of the way of a corner attack, gets the big tag to Brother Ray. We get some friendly fire by America's Most Wanted and a DDT, still not enough. Heart attack by the champs and a kick out. They set up for the death sentence, but it's broken up. Team 3D hit a doomsday device on Harris. Storm on the outside. He grabs a chair and he's like ducking down by the apron, ready to strike. And then Chris Harris is like, hey man, come on, come in the ring. Let me walk over and grab you by the head like I would in any context. Arnar, I've been dinked. We get a big 3D version too, still not enough. Storm goes up top and is shoved off, falls through Chekhov's table. Now Gail Kim is in the ring and gives Chris some of the white gimmick. Bully Ray bops it up into everyone's face. They hit Wildcat with a 3D. They redirect the blinded ref, the 3 count, and the win. And immediately something feels amiss because, okay, the bell rings, but there's no music, there's no JB right away announcing the winners. We see the referee, getting his eyes wiped off. Okay, angle alert, angle alert. Sure enough, Team Canada runs in, they beat up the good guys, they put Harris on top of Ray, and the ref, who can now see again, he walks up and gives the match to AMW. That fucking sucked. I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars out of 5. Look, I liked that finish, but at the same time, fuck that finish. Because when you have to go against all your previously established like production tropes to make it work, then I think that is a huge red flag right there. The format is, even if the referee is blinded, it's like, oh, 1, 2, 3, point to bell, bell rings, boom, music plays, boom, Jeremy, because he sees what happens. JB saw it. Why couldn't he? God, like just when you try and like backtrack with the logic that's been previously established and then will be established later on in this show, it really takes you out of it. Shane's in the promo zone with NWA champ Jeff Jarrett and the alpha male Monty Brown. Shane talks about how two of the biggest signings in TNA are joining forces, guys. Christian Cage and the man they named Sting. Ooh, doesn't hit quite as hard. Jarrett says that Christian and Sting are the new flavors of the month, and the laws of physics say that two people cannot exist in the same place at the same time. He puts over Sting as a legend and an icon, but says the business has passed him by in the 5 years he's been gone. He calls Christian Cage a mid-card comedy act trying to get to their level, and then Jarrett starts to, sow the seeds of doubt. Can you trust Christian Cage, Sting? Look at the people he betrayed. He betrayed his brother. He betrayed Chris Jericho, and that's all we can say about it. Jarrett says he is sure one of those guys will take a desperate measure and says that TNA management will learn that it's always Planet him. In comes the alpha male to go tick-tock, beep, beep, welcome to the Serengeti. He refers to him and Jarrett as the flavors of the millennium, and he warns Sting and Cage to be very, very careful because tonight somebody will feel the pounce, period. And that makes Shane give out a mighty laugh. For the X Division Championship, the unbeaten Samoa Joe defends against the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. Back in September, after a 4-on-4 Elimination X match, Joe beat the hell out of his own teammate in Daniels, put him on the shelf with a grade 3 concussion, and walked around for months with the blood-stained towel as a trophy. And he does that on his way to becoming the X Division champion, and like I said, has still been undefeated these last 7 months. He tries to injure AJ Styles the same way he hurt Daniels, but then he comes back and makes the save and is out for some stone cold revenge, while Joe says he will end Daniels' career. You can see Joe comes out with a clean towel tonight because it's a clean slate before more blood. The crowd is very split down the middle for this one here. Daniels off to a hot start, trying to outpace and outmaneuver Joe at first. He goes for an Asai moonsault, but Joe just nopes him. Joe's got all the answers for Daniels here. He gets a big power slam out of the corner. Daniels fights out of a go-go plata, but winds right up in an STF with additional temple noogie. Daniels almost powerbombs Joe out of the corner, but Joe counters into a Dan Hurricane Rana. Daniels pulls off the BME, but it's not enough, so then he does a big springboard cactus elbow onto Joe on the floor. Holy crap. Joe cuts Daniels off in the ropes. He's back on the offense. Big running boot right to the previously injured dome of Daniels. Now the Fallen Angel is bleeding. The punishment continues, and out comes Daniels' former rival in AJ Styles. Daniels starts to fight back, but he's too woozy, and Joe capitalizes. And from here, things just get agonizing because Joe now, he smells blood. He is just laying in the head strikes over and over again. He hits not one, but 2 muscle busters. The announcers are screaming in agony over the absolute depravity of what is happening here and the brutality that Joe is presenting. And so he's just knee after knee after knee. Daniels is unresponsive. The referee's not doing anything. Finally, AJ Styles throws in the towel, and that's how the match ends. Joe retains over a bloody and beaten down Christopher Daniels. Career in jeopardy. What an emotional way to end that match. 4.5 stars out of 5. I give that one because, woo, that was incredible. It was a great story, physical, aggressive, and then Joe turns the dial up and just gets so evil by the end. But he's enjoying it, I love how they build Joe as a killer here. And a match like that makes me go, I wonder why they waited so long to pull the trigger on him. In your main event, Jeff Jarrett and Monty Brown take on Christian Cage and a big scorpion, Sting. One thing I forgot to mention is that this being a feud involving Jeff Jarrett, you know what we've got coming up in the build for this, right? That's right, dressing up as Sting, baby. It's a classic part of the Double J playbook. Then on the go-home Impact, we don't see Sting, but we hear his voice. You see Jarrett and Brown in the ring. They're talking a big game. You see the lights flicker, and you hear Sting's voice. He calls him Queen of the Hill and the alpha female. look up, I'm up here. Now look down. And then I love seeing Jarrett and Monty go, huh, like look down below them at the floor, expecting to see somebody there. That's some great bit of panto. Shane Douglas is backstage with Christian Cage, and shouldn't Sting be there too? Cage wants to know if this is the face of a man that can't be trusted. Hey, jump on the phone, ask my brother, ask Chris Jericho if you can trust me. Actually, that's not such a good idea. Okay, why would you just reiterate what Jarrett said earlier? He says, actually, why don't you ask each member of the Christian Coalition if this is the face of a man you can trust? Trust this, Sting. I'm excited you're in TNA and you're my partner. We both can't stand Monty Brown. We both can't stand Jarrett. And no matter which Stinger shows up tonight, this mid-card comedy act is going to save the fans of TNA and win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship from you. Because that's how he rolls. I think Sting has to hold the record for being like the most talked about wrestler of all time, despite not being physically there. Because like, how many storylines have we had since, 1996, where like Sting's gone, he's taken months off, but we still have to talk about him. He's always somewhere. He's lurking, and like he gets so much of that in TNA. We're gonna get more of it, and like we get it here. It's like, man, everyone's just talking about Sting, and everyone should be asking, where's Sting? Where's Sting? So the first three make their way out, then we get Thunder, we get Lightning, we get Scorpion. The man called Sting makes his long-awaited return to the ring. Huge ovation for the Stinger, who looks to be in pretty great shape. Starts out with Monty and Cage. Jarrett tags in, Cage with some mockery. Sting gets his first tag into a big pop, and Jarrett is very intimidated. Sting goes, ow, the fans are happy, and then Jarrett, not to be outdone, tries to do his own version, and it just comes off like, ow! Sting with some good early offense gets a "you still got it" chant. Christian tags himself in, Gail Kim on the apron with a distraction, and that allows Jarrett to low blow him and dump him to the floor. Gail follows up with a hell of a Hurricane Rana off the apron. So now the baddies are all over Cage, and this is a classic tag team story. Heat, heat, heat. All these chances at a hot tag, but oh, the referee misses, doesn't see the first hot tag. And oh, they're going for a tag, but oh, Jarrett pulls Sting off the apron at the last second. Jarrett grabbing a pair of chairs, the referee is distracted. The concerto misses and Cage takes them down. Sting gets the hot tag, he's going wild, hits the Stinger splash on Jarrett. Monty Brown laying out the referee. Sting with a Scorpion deathlock. Jarrett's tapping like a madman, but there's no ref. Brown and Christian are fighting. Monty just hucks Cage over his head on top of Sting. And oh no, can they coexist? Monty has the NWA title belt. Cage pulling Sting out of the way. Oh no, can they coexist again? Yes, they can. Out goes Monty Brown, but in comes Team Canada. They're disposed of. Gail Kim distracts Sting. Jarrett lays out Sting with the title belt, the cover, but Sting kicks out at 2. All 4 men in the ring. Sting begins to him up on Jarrett. Stereo splash attempts, but they both miss. Jarrett looks to El Kabong Cage, but Sting just grabs his bat and destroys the guitar with it out of Jarrett's hand. That was cool. Scorpion death drop to Jarrett. Sting gets the wing. He and Cage celebrate in the ring, and Sting gets his literal moment in the spotlight as the show goes off the air. I give it 3 stars out of 5. The nuts and bolts of this match are very basic, standard, classic tag team storytelling, the faked out hot tags and everything. And then you add in the metric fuck ton of Jarrett chicanery and run-ins and stuff at the end. That is his hallmark for big matches like this, but it's still a great return for Sting. And, the crowd being into it as they are, the way Sting is booked, looking like a world beater, beating Jeff Jarrett in the ring, sends the fans home super happy, and you can't really ask for much of a better way to end the show. And the rest of the year will be very interesting for Sting indeed. My grade for TNA Final Resolution 2006 is a B. Overall, I had a really fun time watching this show. I don't think any of the matches dragged. There was always at least one thing in the match that I really enjoyed or took away from, oh, this is a really cool story, really cool twist. There were a couple of things in this show that I thought were brutal booking-wise, but are more or less kind of nitpicks. There were a lot of things on this show, even if things weren't all that great, did leave you wanting more and to see what would happen. And yes, despite all these conspiracies, it's got to be interesting to somebody to keep it going for as long as it is. And I am curious to see just how we are drawn along on this arc with Jarrett, with Zbyszko, with Sting. And, we do know that Sting is not going to be around for a bit after this. He will retire soon after this show, and then the story will be how Jarrett brings Sting back, which I've covered a little bit in Hard Justice and Bound for Glory. And certainly the rest of this year for TNA is I'm very excited to cover. But what did you think about this show, and how about this review? Let me know in the comments section below. Now, you can tune in next month and join us for our return to TNA Against All Odds 2006. But later this month, we are still in January, and you know what that means. It's Royal Rumble season, which means I got to cover a classic Rumble. We're going to have the Big Boss Man looking to get his hands on Bobby Heenan through the Barbarian. Hulk Hogan hopes to win his second consecutive Rumble match, and the Ultimate Warrior hopes to defend the WWF Championship against that no-good Iraqi sympathizer, Sergeant Slaughter. All that and more in my review of the 1991 Royal Rumble. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.